Sarah was a college student, bright, ambitious, always looking for ways to make a little extra cash. When her sociology professor, Dr. Alastair Finch, offered her a house-sitting gig, she jumped at it. Dr. Finch and his wife were going on a 3-week sabbatical to Italy, and they needed someone reliable to look after their sprawling, old Victorian home on the outskirts of town. It sounded perfect. Quiet, good pay, and plenty of time to study. The house itself was something out of a Gothic novel. 3 stories high, dark wood, turrets, and a widow's walk that looked out over dense woods. It sat on a generous plot of land, isolated from its nearest neighbors by a winding, tree-lined drive. From the outside, it was imposing. Inside, it was a museum. Heavy tapestries, antique furniture, shelves crammed with leather-bound books that smelled of dust and forgotten knowledge. It was beautiful, in a slightly unsettling way, a place that felt like it held secrets. Sarah arrived on a crisp October afternoon, the air already hinting at winter's bite. Dr. Finch gave her a quick tour, showed her how to work the alarm system, a state-of-the-art contraption with motion sensors and door contacts, and pointed out the pantry, stocked with enough food to last an army. His wife, a quiet woman with eyes that seemed to hold a perpetual sadness, simply offered a small, almost nervous smile and wished her luck. Then they were gone, their sleek black sedan disappearing down the long drive, leaving Sarah alone in the echoing silence of the massive house. The first few days were idyllic. Sarah settled into a routine. Mornings were for classes, afternoons for studying in the grand, sun-drenched library, evenings for cooking simple meals in the enormous kitchen. The silence was deep, almost profound. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was a presence of silence, heavy and ancient. Then things started, small things at first, the kind of things you brush off, a tribute to an old house. A floorboard creaking upstairs when she was downstairs, a door gently swinging shut in the hallway, though there was no draft. Sarah would pause, listen, blame the house settling, and carry on. But a tiny, cold tendril of unease began to wrap itself around her heart. One evening, while reading in the library, she caught a faint, unmistakable scent, old cigarettes. It was distinct, acrid, clinging to the air around her like a phantom. She frowned. Neither Dr. Finch nor his wife smoked. She stood up, walked around the room, sniffing, nothing. The scent vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving her questioning her own senses. Was she imagining things? The next night, she was in the living room, watching a movie. The large bay window looked out onto the woods, now swallowed by an inky blackness. A sudden sharp chill permeated the room, raising goosebumps on her arms. She glanced at the thermostat. It was set to a comfortable 72 degrees. The cold was localized, concentrated around the window, radiating an unsettling dampness. She pulled a blanket tighter around herself, trying to dismiss it, but the feeling of being watched from outside the window lingered. The incidents grew bolder. One morning, she found the kitchen pantry door, which she distinctly remembered closing and latching the night before, standing ajar. Not wide open, but just enough to show the darkness within. A cold knot formed in her stomach. She checked the security system. It showed no breaches. Everything was locked. She pushed the door shut, the latch clicking with a loud finality that seemed to mock her. Then came the sounds, not just creaks, but distinct noises, a soft scuffling in the attic directly above her bedroom. A low guttural murmur, so faint it could have been the wind, but it wasn't windy. She tried to rationalize, squirrels, raccoons, but the noises felt purposeful, like something was moving with a slow, deliberate grace, just out of sight, just out of hearing. She started carrying her phone with her everywhere, texting friends, even calling her mom, just to hear a normal voice, a voice that wasn't filtered through the heavy silence of the house. She found herself checking the alarm system panel multiple times a day, just to see the reassuring system-armed message, but even that offered little comfort. One afternoon, she was studying at the large dining table, the afternoon sun streaming through the tall windows. She went to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. When she returned, her textbook, which she had left open, was now closed. and on top of it, resting perfectly centered, was a single, withered rose. Dried to a brittle crisp, its petals almost black. Her breath hitched. She hadn't seen it before. It wasn't there when she left the table moments ago. Her heart pounded, a frantic drum against her ribs. She looked around, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The air was still. The house was silent, too silent. Panic began to coil in her stomach. This wasn't just an old house, this was something else. She snatched the rose, feeling its dry, delicate weight, and threw it into the fireplace. Her hands trembled. She grabbed her phone, ready to call Dr. Finch, ready to explain that she couldn't stay. But what would she say? A rose appeared on my book. It sounded insane. That night sleep refused to come. Every shadow seemed to stretch and writhe. Every distant sound was amplified, distorted into something menacing. Around 2 a.m., she finally drifted into a fitful slumber. She woke with a jolt, a distinct, heavy thud, not from outside, not from the attic, from downstairs. It sounded like something large had fallen. Her eyes flew open, scanning the dark room. Her heart was hammering, a terrified bird trapped in a cage. She held her breath, listening. The house was silent again, a mocking, oppressive silence. No, wait, there it was. A faint, almost imperceptible sound, a slow, rhythmic scrape, like something being dragged across a wooden floor, slowly, deliberately. It was coming from the first floor. She tried to tell herself it was just the house, but the scraping grew louder, closer. It was definitely moving, toward the staircase. Sarah froze, paralyzed by pure, unadulterated terror. Her breath hitched in her throat. She could feel the blood draining from her face, leaving her skin clammy and cold. The scraping stopped. Then a new sound, a soft, measured creak. One step, another step, slow, heavy footsteps, coming up the grand staircase, toward her bedroom door. Her mind screamed. She fumbled for her phone on the nightstand, her fingers clumsy with fear. She couldn't unlock it, couldn't dial. Her hands were shaking too violently. She had to get out. She had to run. But where? The footsteps were getting closer. Creak, 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 each one a hammer blow to her chest. She slid silently out of bed, her bare feet meeting the cold hardwood floor. Her eyes were fixed on the bedroom door, where a sliver of faint moonlight filtered in from the hallway. The doorknob began to turn, slowly, almost imperceptibly. Sarah snatched the heavy, antique brass lamp from her nightstand. Her knuckles were white, her grip like a vice. She backed away toward the wall, her eyes wide, staring at the door. The doorknob stopped turning. The footsteps stopped. There was a pause. A suffocating, terrifying pause. Then, from the other side of the door, a low, rasping breath, like someone struggling to draw air. And then, a whisper, so faint, so ancient, it felt like it seeped into her bones rather than her ears. You're not alone. The voice was ragged, dry, barely human. It wasn't Dr. Finch. It wasn't his wife. It was something else, something wrong. A wave of primal terror washed over her, stripping away every ounce of logic. She screamed. A raw, guttural shriek that tore through the heavy silence of the house. She lunged for the door, not to open it, but to jam the heavy lamp against the handle, forcing it shut with all her strength. She could hear a frustrated groan from the other side, a heavy thud against the wood. She didn't stop to think. She scrambled to her window, wrenching it open. The cold night air hit her face like a slap. She looked down. It was a long drop, at least 15 feet, onto the damp autumn leaves below. But anything was better than staying in that room. Anything was better than what was on the other side of that door. She climbed onto the sill, her heart a frantic drum solo. She dropped the lamp. It shattered on the ground with a dull clang. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she pushed off, falling awkwardly, landing hard on the wet earth. Pain shot up her legs, but she barely registered it. She scrambled to her feet, ignoring the searing agony in her ankle, and ran. She ran through the moonlit woods, thorns tearing at her nightgown, cold mud splashing her bare feet. She didn't look back. She just ran blindly until she reached the main road, until she saw the distant glow of a street lamp. She didn't stop until she collapsed on the cold asphalt, sobbing hysterically, calling 911 on her phone, gasping out fragmented words about an intruder, about a voice, about being trapped. The police found nothing. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, no mysterious figures. The security system was armed, intact. Every window and door was locked, just as she'd left them, except for her bedroom window, which was still open. They chalked it up to stress, an overactive imagination in an old house, maybe a sleepwalking episode. They were kind, but their eyes held a patronizing pity. Sarah never went back to that house. She couldn't. The Finches returned from Italy, puzzled by her abrupt departure and the broken lamp beneath her window. They listened to the police report, looked at their pristine home, and assured Sarah's professor that everything was fine, just a misunderstanding. But for Sarah, it wasn't a misunderstanding. The memory of that voice, that rasping whisper, "You're not alone," haunts her to this day. She still feels the phantom chill, still smells the faint scent of old cigarettes in quiet moments. She moved to a new apartment, far from old houses and isolated woods. She double-checks her locks constantly, every night.